How much is your loyalty worth to a corporation that views your bank account as a harvest field? Have you ever felt the stinging realization that the cutting-edge technology you bought yesterday was actually just an expensive beta test for the product they intended to release today? Imagine standing in line for the latest flagship processor, paying a premium for the promise of the future, only to have the manufacturer pull the curtain back 6 months later to reveal a faster, cheaper, and better version that makes your purchase look like a relic of the past. This is the reality Intel has just handed to its most dedicated followers with the official announcement of the Arrow Lake refresh, featuring the Core Ultra 7 270K Plus and the Core Ultra 5 250K Plus, set to hit shelves on March 26, 2025. This is not just a minor speed bump or a lazy clock increase, but a calculated, aggressive move to fix a product line that many considered a disappointment at launch. If you were looking for a sign that the Silicon Wars have entered a phase of pure desperation, this is it, and you need to decide right now if you are going to be a player or a casualty in their game. Before we dissect the corpse of the old lineup and see what Intel has stuffed inside these new chips, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never find yourself on the wrong side of a hardware cycle again. The tech industry loves the word refresh because it sounds rejuvenating, like a cold glass of water on a summer day, but in reality, it usually means the marketing department ran out of ideas. However, what we are seeing with the Arrow Lake refresh is something entirely different, a rare moment where a company admits, through its engineering, that the first iteration was fundamentally flawed. Intel is not just turning the dial up on the clock speeds. They are rewiring the internal logic of the processor to address the latency issues that plagued the original Arrow Lake chips. By launching these processors on March 26, 2025, Intel is trying to shorten the memory of the consumer, hoping you will forget the mediocre benchmarks of the previous year. It is a surprisingly fast turnaround, a break glass in case of emergency maneuver that signals Intel is finally taking the competition from AMD seriously. They are no longer content with being the incumbent giant. They are fighting like an underdog, which is both exciting for the budget builder and terrifying for anyone who already invested in the LGA 1851 platform. To understand why this refresh matters, we have to look at the 3 pillars of Intel's architectural overhaul: increased core counts, massively improved internal communication, and a new suite of optimization tools. For years, we have been told that more cores do not always equal more performance, but Intel is betting that sheer quantity can overcome a lot of architectural sins. The most critical change, however, is the increase in die-to-die, or D2D, communication frequency, which acts as the nervous system connecting the different parts of the CPU. If the internal tiles of a processor cannot talk to each other fast enough, the entire system stutters, regardless of how many gigahertz you throw at the problem. By focusing on the interconnect, Intel is essentially widening the highways inside the chip, ensuring that data does not get stuck in traffic while moving from the performance cores to the efficiency cores. The flagship of this new offensive is the Core Ultra 7 270K Plus, a chip designed to make the existing top-tier models look like overpriced paperweights. Intel has bumped the core count to 24, adding 4 additional efficiency cores to bring the configuration to 8 P cores and 16 E cores. This brings the mid-range 7 series into direct parity with the core counts previously reserved for the 9 series flagships. They have also beefed up the cache, with 36 megabytes of L3 cache and 40 megabytes of L2 cache to keep the data fed to those hungry cores. But the most staggering technical leap is the D2D frequency boost, jumping from 2.1 GHz in the old models to a blistering 3.0 GHz in the Plus version. This 30% increase in internal communication speed is the silver bullet intended to kill the latency problems that made the original Arrow Lake struggle in gaming and real-time applications. However, the most shocking number associated with the Core Ultra 7 270K Plus is not a clock speed or a core count, but the price tag. Intel is launching this 24-core monster at $299, a massive drop from the $394 asking price of its predecessor. Think about that for a moment. You are getting more cores, faster internal speeds, and better optimization for nearly $100 less than the inferior model released just months ago. This is a predatory pricing strategy designed to suffocate AMD's mid-range offerings. But it is also a slap in the face to every early adopter who paid the Intel tax last year. The message is clear: the performance per dollar ratio has been reset. And if you bought in early, you were simply funding the research and development for the product Intel actually wanted to sell. The aggression continues into the mid-range with the Core Ultra 5 250K Plus, a chip that aims to dominate the high-volume segment of the market. This model now boasts 18 cores, consisting of 6 performance cores and 12 efficiency cores, providing a massive boost in multi-threaded capability for its class. With a boost clock of 5.3 GHz and expanded cache sizes, it is designed to punch way above its weight class in both productivity and gaming. But again, the real story is the price, which has been slashed from $309 down to a mere $199. For less than $200, you are getting a chip that can handle heavy video editing and modern gaming without breaking a sweat, making it perhaps the most attractive i5 class processor we have seen in a decade. Intel is essentially declaring war on the concept of the budget build, offering high-end specs at prices that were previously reserved for entry-level components. While these numbers are a dream for new builders, they represent a nightmare for anyone who recently purchased the previous flagship, the Core Ultra 9 285 series. The new 270K Plus now has the same 24-core count as the old King of the Hill, but with the added benefit of that faster internal D2D interconnect. When you look at the clock speeds, the differences are negligible, and in many scenarios, the new 7 series will likely outperform the old 9 series because it can move data more efficiently. We are looking at a situation where a $299 chip is effectively replacing a $550 chip in less than a year. The value of the previous flagship has evaporated overnight, leaving early adopters holding a product that is objectively worse and twice as expensive as the new mid-range hero. This is the villainy of the tech cycle, where the corporation sacrifices the loyalty of its best customers to win a price war in the headlines. To further tighten their grip, Intel is introducing the binary optimization tool, a sophisticated software layer designed to wring every last drop of performance out of their architecture. This tool uses advanced profiling and compiler technology to analyze how a program is running and then reorganizes the execution to eliminate wasted cycles and redundant instructions. It is like having a master mechanic fine-tune your engine while you are driving down the highway, ensuring that the software and hardware are in perfect harmony. While this is primarily aimed at power users and developers who want to maximize their throughput, the implications for general performance are significant. By using software to fix hardware inefficiencies, Intel is admitting that modern silicon is too complex for traditional programming to handle on its own. However, there is a catch. Intel has not yet confirmed which older CPUs will be compatible with this tool, potentially locking this free performance boost behind the paywall of the new Plus series. When we pivot to the battlefield of performance, the comparison between the new Intel chips and AMD's Ryzen 9000 series becomes a bloodbath of multi-threaded statistics. In tasks that utilize every available core like 3D rendering or complex data compilation, the Core Ultra 7 270K Plus is projected to outperform the Ryzen 7 9700X by up to 2 times. This is not necessarily because Intel has a smarter architecture, but because they are using brute force, packing 24 cores into a price bracket where AMD only offers 8. It is a cynical but effective numbers game. Intel knows that the average consumer looks at a bar graph and sees a longer line, and they are willing to sacrifice profit margins to make sure their line is the longest. While AMD still holds the crown for power efficiency, Intel is betting that for $299, you will not care about your electricity bill as much as you care about getting your work done twice as fast. The most important redemption arc for the Arrow Lake refresh, however, is in the realm of gaming where the original architecture notoriously stumbled. By fixing the internal communication speeds, Intel has finally unlocked the potential of their performance cores, resulting in double-digit gains across the board. By fixing the internal communication speeds, Intel has finally unlocked the potential of their performance cores, resulting in double-digit gains across the board. The Core Ultra 7 270K Plus is showing a 15% improvement in gaming performance over its predecessor, while the 250K Plus is not far behind with a 13% jump. In specific titles like Far Cry 6, we are seeing performance increases as high as 24%, and Borderlands 3 is showing a 20% boost. These are the kinds of numbers you usually see between entire generations of hardware, not within a mid-cycle refresh. It proves that the raw power was always there in Arrow Lake, but it was being choked by the very system meant to manage it, and Intel has finally loosened the collar. Yet every deal of the century comes with a hidden cost. And for the Arrow Lake refresh, that cost is the looming shadow of the dead-end platform. The LGA 1851 socket, which these new chips call home, is rumored to be one of the shortest-lived sockets in Intel's history. There are persistent reports that Intel will move to an entirely new socket by the end of 2025 or early 2026 to accommodate their next major architectural shift. This means that if you buy a Z890 motherboard today to host your new 270K Plus, you might find yourself unable to upgrade your CPU ever again without replacing the entire foundation of your computer. You are essentially buying a very high-performance dead end, a localized peak in technology that has no path forward. Intel is the villain here because they are selling you a future-proof, high-speed highway that they plan to demolish and reroute in 12 months. We also have to consider the hostile market environment in which these processors are launching, where a cheap CPU does not necessarily mean a cheap PC. While Intel has slashed the price of the chips themselves, the cost of everything else required to run them high-speed DDR5 memory, PCIe Gen 5 storage and premium motherboards is still climbing. A $200 processor sounds like a steal until you realize you need a $300 motherboard and $200 worth of RAM to make it function at its advertised speeds. The global supply chain and the rising cost of materials have created a situation where the CPU is no longer the primary expense of a build. Intel's price cuts are a desperate attempt to remain relevant in a market where the total cost of entry is becoming prohibitive for the average gamer. If the rest of the industry doesn't follow suit with price drops, Intel's generosity will be nothing more than a footnote in an increasingly expensive hobby. So, where does this leave you, the user, the victim of this endless cycle of planned obsolescence and corporate maneuvering? The Arrow Lake refresh is undeniably a triumph of engineering and a masterclass in aggressive pricing. But it is also a reminder that in the tech world, there is no such thing as a safe bet. If you are building a new system from scratch and you need the best multi-threaded performance for the lowest possible price, the March 26th launch is your golden ticket. But you must go into this with your eyes wide open, knowing that you are buying into a platform with no future. You are choosing raw, immediate value over long-term stability, and for many, that is a trade-off worth making. The lesson here is that you should never buy hardware based on what it might become or how long it might last, but solely on what it can do for you the moment you plug it in. Intel's reverse strategy is a calculated risk to win back the hearts and minds of the DIY community by offering them a deal they cannot refuse, even if it burns their previous customers in the process. They have identified that the market is tired of incremental upgrades and high prices, so they have delivered a massive leap at a bargain basement cost. It is a classic Machiavellian move. Destroy the value of the old to ensure the dominance of the new. As we wait for the independent reviews to confirm these shocking numbers, one thing is certain: the competition has never been more cutthroat, and the consumer is the only one who stands to benefit from Intel's panic. Will you take the bait and build a 24-core monster for $300? Or will you wait to see if the next socket change makes this entire generation irrelevant? The choice is yours, but remember that in the world of silicon, the only thing that moves faster than the electrons is the rate at which your new computer becomes old news. Tell me in the comments, are you ready to forgive Intel for the original Arrow Lake launch if the price is this low? Or have you already moved on to the competition? Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay ahead of the next corporate pivot, because in this industry, the only constant is change, and the only defense is knowledge.